But today I'm super excited. Today I got a special guest on, Dave, live from the shed. So I'm just gonna do a little quick introduction. I know he's restreaming it onto his channels. So if you're new to hearing about me, my name's Tyson Hockley. I'm a 14-year-old covering all the freedom rallies on Vancouver Island. But I'm just gonna pop Dave up on the screen real quick. He's gonna be sharing his experience from Ottawa as somebody who was there, who experienced um, everything go down. And I wish I was there to cover everything. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the perspective of somebody who's actually there, boots on the ground, and who is on the scene in Ottawa. So, Dave, I'm bringing you on, and yeah. Hey, Dave.
Hey,
How's
buddy,
it
how's it
going?
going?
Hey, thank you for being the first guest to appear on my show. I'm trying something new, hoping to have more guests in the future, but thank you for coming on.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. And when you said you wanted to experiment with doing some podcasting stuff, then yeah, I'm happy to help. So you got a lot of skills, as all my viewers know who've seen you before, and I'm sure you'll do a great job. It's going to be a little weird being on this side of the chair. My viewers will like it because I like being the one asking the questions, not having to answer them all. So, but I'll let you be in charge this time.
Yeah, it's funny, we kinda, like, reverse roles, because you were the first person whose, show I actually went on, so, yeah, it's kinda weird, we reverse roles, now I'm the person kinda giving the interview, um, but yeah, so, first I'm just gonna ask, so you were on the scene in Ottawa, of course, me and many others watch everything go down from the lens of streamers like you. I just wanna know, like, were you there before the truckers arrived, and were you, like, awaiting their arrival, or did you kinda come down once they're already there?
Well, yeah, I'll rewind a little bit there. So well, the first time I ever heard about the convoy was like on social media and stuff, like many of us. And I was wondering, is this as big as they say it's going to be? What's really going on? Because we'd see these little clips. And, long time later, I found out that a bunch of those clips I saw were from Tanner. Shout out to Tire Roasters Garage and these epic, like, drone footage of the convoy. And but when you see stuff online, you don't know if it's real or not, or where it came from. And I didn't know about any live streamers at that point, so all I had to work with was clips I saw online. But anyway, I was hopeful that this was a thing. And so I looked at the schedule online, and I saw that there was supposed to be a convoy coming through my area along the 401 near Guelph. And I'm from the Waterloo area, and so I happened to be off work early that day, and I was like, you know what, I think I can make it in time to see this convoy. So I drove out to the overpass, and by overpass I mean I just went on Google, and this was one that had a parking lot near it. So I was like, oh, I'll go to that one. I didn't know if there'd be other people there. I didn't get invited by anyone. I just went to an overpass off the 401 that, according to this website of these people, I didn't know that there was supposed to be a convoy. And so I went out there, ended up standing for, oh, I don't know whether it was 3 or 4 hours before finally saw some trucks coming through. And that was the first time actually that I would have seen the shed truck. I didn't really, it didn't mean anything to me at the time, but I remember thinking, oh, that's kind of neat. There's a shed built on top of a truck. And so I saw that truck go through and a few others heading towards Ottawa. And it wasn't just me on the overpass. There ended up being like hundreds of people. There's over 200 people probably at this
Wow.
overpass, waving flags and handing out coffee, and just, this incredible positive energy. And in that moment, I said, you know what, I need to get myself to Ottawa. So I texted up a few friends. One of them's a trucker
Mhm.
himself, and they had already been thinking about going to Ottawa. So I hopped in with them. We took his little pickup truck, and five of us shoved into this little pickup truck. I packed enough clothes for the weekend because that's what I
Mhm.
thought I was going to be doing. And then we headed to Ottawa, and that was on the Friday. So yeah, it was the Thursday that the convoy came through, where I was near Guelph, and then Friday we headed up there. And where did we stay? Yeah, we stayed at a hotel downtown Ottawa, and there was already a number of trucks down there. And then Saturday, some more trucks came in, and it was as you might have seen, it was pandemonium those first few days. So
Yeah.
that's how I ended up down there in the first place.
Awesome. So, you mentioned after the trucks passed by the overpass and you were on there with 200 people. That's kind of shocking. How do you fit 200 people on one overpass? That's nuts. So
Well,
was
well,
it?
there was like a big embankment, so it was
Oh yeah.
spread. There was across the overpass, and then all the way down the embankment. There was just all sorts of people. Oh yeah, and then tractors ended up showing up. So like while we were there, this crew of like 10 tractors came rolling up, drove off the road, and came down onto the embankment and just parked by the overpass as well. So that was pretty
Holy.
epic.
So was it that day that you went down like downtown Ottawa, or was it the next day?
The overpass day was the Thursday, and then it
Mhm.
was the Friday. We joined in with another convoy that was leaving Kingston,
Yeah.
and that day was crazy too. So we pull into this truck stop in Kingston, and actually, yeah. So late Thursday night, we went to Kingston to stay at a hotel, and there was someone waiting at this truck stop just to see if anyone came, and they had fresh cookies baked for us, and like all these things that became very normal for us in Ottawa. These were my first experiences with it, but there was someone there with fresh cookies, offered us a place to stay, but we had a hotel booked already. And then we came back the next day and joined a convoy from Kingston to finish the route to Ottawa. And there was like people on all the overpasses as we went into Ottawa, and
Mhm.
just absolutely crazy.
So when you arrived downtown Ottawa, like what was the energy like? Were people excited to be there? Like, because I know from experience, from when I go to the rallies, everyone's super nice. One guy was handing out cookies the other day to everyone. So like, what was everyone's mood like on the first day when all the truckers were arriving in Ottawa?
Oh, the mood was just like electric. It was, yeah. It. I mean, anyone who was there knows what I'm talking about. But for I mean, anyone who wasn't, just think like your happiest, most joyful moment, the perfect birthday party or the best concert you've ever been to. It was just pure joy, and everyone was just of one mind, like waving the flags, and it was hugs and fist pumps, and everyone, to whether you knew them or not. It was just, there was this incredible unity, and it's like all this tension and this desire for relationship and just human contact, it all just like exploded in that moment when everyone was together, and all everyone just together in such like beautiful unity. So yeah, the energy was wild. Of course, the horns were crazy that first couple days, so it was just a chorus of horns, almost forming into this harmony of different horns that were going, and fireworks going off, and everyone cheering. And yeah, it was something to behold, to say the least.
Well, now you're making me feel bad for missing out on it. But I could feel the energy coming through the screen. Like when I'd watch guys like Ottawalks down there and you Ottawa Scotty, I could feel the energy. And they'd be walking around, there'd be like dance parties and stuff from what I was seeing. And I do feel like I missed out for sure on covering that. That would have been awesome. Um, yeah, sounds like it was a blast from what you're saying. So, kind of a couple days go by, and when was kinda like when the police kinda started to, like, crack down on you guys? Because I know, the Emergencies Act was invoked by, Trudeau, and, what was that all like?
Well, let's rewind a bit there, because for the first, like, so the police, I mean, really wasn't an issue until like 3 weeks later. So
Yeah.
at the start there, so I came with this group of friends, four friends. We came in a pickup truck, and then the first like Friday, Saturday, we were just waving flags and having a good time, and but then very quickly, I saw how important this was, how big this was becoming, and I said, I can't leave here. So I I decided in that moment that I was going to stay, and didn't really know what my plan was.
Yeah.
And so, thank you. Seize the day. Just super chat there. By the way, we're on both channels here, so I'm on Tyson's and my own, so won't always have the comments pop up there. But so yeah, so I was with these four friends. They headed home on the Sunday, and then it was
Mhm.
just me. I didn't know anyone there, but I was pretty confident that this was an important thing, and I wanted to stick around. So I didn't even know where I was going to stay that night, but I happened to have a friend who reached out to me, and he heard I was down in Ottawa, and he said, do you have a place to stay? And I said no, and he's like, well, here, I'll book you a spot at a hotel. I've got all sorts of reward points. So he ended up booking me a spot at a hotel, and so I had that taken care of, and then I just started walking the streets, like trying to network
Mhm.
and figure out like what was going on, because there was all this talk in the media that there was this big organized well-funded group that was doing this, and I kept hunting around like trying to figure out who these people were because I want to help them, like. And then but everyone I met, they were asking the same questions I was, so I was I went down onto Wellington Street, and one of the first trucks I hopped into was was Jay Vanderweer, the owner of the Shed truck. And obviously that truck really stood out. It was
Yeah.
pretty obvious to everyone. And so I hopped in that truck, got talking to Jay, and was like, "What's going on here? Like, who did you come?" I just assumed he knew what was going on because he was one of the truckers. He's like, "I don't know. I heard there was a convoy, so I hopped in my truck, and I'm here now." And he didn't really know anyone either, and so I started just like walking the line of trucks and talking to people and trying to figure out, what was going on. And I quickly realized that this whole section of Wellington Street, everything from like Metcalf West, was all these guys from Ontario who pretty much had come out on their own and didn't really know anybody. There were some like the Western Convoy and some of the guys from Quebec who traveled further together. They were a little more networked with each other, but most of the guys from Ontario were like me and just showed up and had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So I started hanging out with some of them, and then like at this point we didn't know anything of like who was doing what and what was going on, so we just started building friendships with each other and trying to help each other as best we could. And yeah, those the first couple days were just absolutely wild. I ran into, there were it was very hard to figure out like who was responsible for what, because it's not like you could flash an ID tag
Mhm.
and say that you're doing this. So people would come up and say, "Oh, I'm in charge of fuel," and you're like, "Okay, that's handy," and I'll take down their number. And then the next day, someone else would say, "No, no, no, like I'm in charge of fuel," and I was like, "Oh, well, that last guy told me he was in charge of fuel." No, no, that's a different group. Oh, what group are you with? Oh, we're with. So there was hug a trucker and kiss a trucker and help a trucker and adopt a trucker and all these different groups, and it all meant nothing to me or to anyone that I knew on Wellington Street. So we just like formed this group amongst ourselves, and we're like trying to take care of each other. Jay, he started buying hotel rooms,
Mhm.
and then guys would take turns using the hotel rooms. And we had one hotel room set up actually just for showers, so there was a guy who stayed there and just opened the door all day to let guys come in and shower. And all these kind of like crazy things, just to try to take care of of each other. So when I'd see these news reports of, how they were talking like we were this one unified group that was so dangerous or something, and that was not, what we saw on the ground at all. It was very much like we were all making it up as we went. So yeah, the you cut me off if I get boring, but but I
No,
haven't
not
told
boring at all.
a lot of my viewers haven't heard this whole story, I guess. So
Yeah.
we started. yeah, we were just building networks with each other. The shed became this sort of meeting place for
Mhm.
the drivers in that area. So I took it upon myself to kind of go around and try to network with people in different areas, and then Jay was really focused on networking with the truckers on Wellington Street. So me and Jay kind of tag teamed on that. I would run around trying to figure out how are we going to get fuel, who's in charge, where are we going to get money, what's going on, and then Jay's just an incredible guy and just can connect with anyone, and so he was going around making friends with all the truckers, and started meeting in the shed. Was kind
Yeah.
of our our meeting point, and we started doing daily meetings with the guys to try to update them on what was going on, and then that it grew beyond the shed. But that the first meeting in the shed, somewhere I think I could dig up some old photos from it, but I took some photos because I thought it was so hilarious. There was like 10 of these truckers shoved into this little shed, and it became a yelling match of like what we should do and who's in charge. And it was there was a lot of testosterone in the room, and I was kind of sitting in a corner just watching Jay try to handle it. And eventually, Jay started screaming at the top of his lungs, like, "Everyone, just be quiet!" in ruder terms than that. And then they finally were quiet, and then he tried to pull control of the room. So it was, yeah, a lot of alpha males together in one place, and no one really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I remember jumping into some trucks and meeting these guys, and they'd freak out at me. They'd be like, "What's going on? Where's the gas? Where's the fuel? What's going on?" I'm like, "Buddy, I just showed up a few days ago. I don't know what's going on either, but I'm just trying to figure it out like you." And but eventually we built this kind of trust between the guys down there on Wellington, and the shed became this kind of meeting point for the guys down there. And yeah, it evolved from there. Eventually we outgrew the shed and we started meeting in what was called the Freedom Trailer, which
Mhm.
was a big black trailer that said freedom on it. And there was an awesome just like driver lounge that evolved in there that had food and heaters and chairs, and we would just hang out there. And that's where the daily drivers meetings for Wellington Street started to happen. And that's
Mhm.
kind of how the first week started to evolve. But it was, yeah, I mean, we could go on. Books will and are being written about all this. It was
Mhm.
incredible just to watch this grassroots thing evolving before your eyes, because there were, a dozen every day. I was learning about a new organization that was a part of this, and they were all trying to find their piece of where to fill in. But our little piece on Wellington Street was me and Jay just building relationships with as many of the guys in that area as we could, and trying to take to take care of each other.
Mhm. As this conversation goes on, I feel more and more upset that I wasn't able to be there. Like, I totally feel like I missed out on that. But what point was it that you decided that you were gonna start your own channel and that you were gonna start broadcasting what was going on to the world?
Right. So, I mean, it became very obvious very early that the media was not only being deceitful about what was going on, I mean, or not only bending the truth, they were just lying outright. So I'd often go back to my hotel and flip on the evening news out of curiosity and to see what lies they made up about us that day, because I was right there in the middle of it. And after about a week, I was networked enough that anything that was going on in the downtown, I mean, I either knew about it or I could ask someone who knew about it, and I could quickly find out what was really going on. And so by the time it was on the news, I heard about these things already, and knew what the truth was. And then to see it come on the news, you know, this people have heard all the stories before about the war memorial and the Terry Fox thing and the soup kitchen and blah 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 and whichever. And I've debunked all of those enough. And if anyone wants to dig in, it's not too hard to find the truth of what was really going on in those things. But the news was just lying through their teeth, and what I was seeing was something very beautiful and something very special that was happening. And what the news was portraying was very different. And at this point, I didn't really know that these streamers were a thing. I'd seen guys going around with cameras, I mean, to be honest, I always thought it was like a little weird, people walking around with selfie sticks,
Yeah.
and was never something that attracted me, to going around with a selfie stick and filming what I was doing. And it was not something that ever crossed my mind. But then, we saw what was going on, and I'd started to do a little bit of live streaming on my personal Facebook, basically just updating friends and family that I wasn't dead or arrested, and it was blowing up, and that was kind of my first realization of like, wow, I know what's going on down here, but the world doesn't. And so, like, the one video I did had like 500,000 views on my personal Facebook. I just did a video of, it was of these uh, pickup trucks with slip tanks, which like fuel delivery tanks, and they were empty, but the police arrested them anyway for delivering fuel. And I filmed that event, and it ended up like going viral online, and it was like a little overwhelming for me because all of a sudden I started getting all these messages, and it just, I'm not, my viewers know that it's, the limelight is not something I chase, and it was it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I ended up locking down my Facebook, and
Yeah.
um, it weirded me out. But I realized how desperate the world was for
Mhm.
information, and so there was a group of us, and my friend Sam, he originally had the idea to put like this stage on top of the shed. So some of you would have seen that platform that was up there, and like that'd be a great spot that we can get nice shots of the crowd, and we
Mhm.
could do some interviews maybe, and then a few of us got together, and this live from the shed was born. And initially we were just doing like little Facebook videos and Instagram, like lots of people, and
Mhm.
that then where the streaming thing came in was, this now fast forward to the last week of the convoy, and we were starting to get very afraid of the police moving in. We'd had all these warnings, and it was starting to look like this might be real. More police are moving
Mhm.
into the city. We see these like military looking dudes, etc. They start moving into the city, and so mostly out of, for protection for our truckers, I set up some cameras on top of the shed, and so I had a 360 camera and then another webcam, and I was just going to record onto my laptop was the plan. But then I'd seen, how desperate people were for information, and so I thought, well, why don't I figure out how to live stream it? I'd never used YouTube streaming before, and but I watched some YouTube videos and downloaded OBS and figured
Yeah.
out all that stuff. And so I started streaming it. It was unreliable at best because we were working with um, a generator and a cell phone to link the internet to it. But then just there's story after story of this at the convoy of just how the right pieces fell into place. But we put up on our sign, "Hey Elon, we need Starlink." And I kid you not, within that same day, someone came up to us and said, "Do you actually need Starlink?" And we said, "Yeah, that would be really helpful for the stream." And then he's like, "Okay, I'll be back." And a few hours later, sure enough, he comes back with the Starlink dish, and we hooked it up on top of the. There was kind of a rumor going around that Elon gave it to us, but no, Elon didn't give it to us, at least not directly. But we did get a Starlink dish. We hooked it up on top of the shed, and then
Mhm.
we were good to go with the internet. So for my last week, and most things were running pretty smoothly by this point. So I had evolved into this role of, we called them street captains. So essentially, I was responsible just to make sure everyone was taken care of on Wellington Street, and so we had block captains looking after each of their blocks, and then the street captains. So I'd check in with the block captains,
Mhm.
and then just ensure that anything they needed, we could get to them. The last week ended up putting a lot of focus into just keeping this stream going, because I saw how important this would be, especially when the police move in. We also didn't know if they were going to like block the cell signals, so
Mhm.
we thought, if the cell signals go down, this Starlink and our little stream here might be the only, evidence that we have of what's really happening. So yeah, we started doing this Starlink stream, and then I remember coming back to it one day and there was like 5,000 people watching, and I was
Wow.
like, "Oh my goodness. Like what is going
Wow.
what is going on here?" And then the first like 20,000 subscribers happened in like that first week,
Mhm.
where everyone was just so desperate to figure out what was going on. And then I'm curious to see in the comments if anyone was there. And it was, I think, was it maybe the Thursday night before, the police moved in. One of those nights, I was I spent the whole night in the shed, because we'd heard, like, we thought the Thursday night was going to be the night. We thought they're going to try to clear us out
Mhm.
before the weekend, and they're going to do it at night to try to get us all out of here before anyone shows up. So I ended up being up that whole night in the shed, and I was bored, so I turned on this microphone right here that we had gotten before. For We were going to do a podcast or something, but never ended up doing it. We were too busy, and I started just talking to the people watching. And I was way too embarrassed to turn on a camera or anything at that point. So I would just talk to the viewers, and they were all the chat just lit up. Everyone's
Yeah.
asking all these questions, and what's really going on, and are you okay? And so I spent that whole night. You can look back somewhere in the streams, but I spent most of that night just talking and answering questions on the stream. And
Mhm.
I was pretty emotional,
Yeah.
as and I read some of the cards that were hanging on the wall. And I mean, I really thought I could end up that that the police were going to move in at any point,
Mhm.
but they didn't Thursday night. But they started they started moving in on the Friday. And that's what you mentioned there before about
Yeah.
the emergency act. So I think it was the Friday. It was either the Thursday or the Friday when they enacted that emergency act.
Mhm.
And then it was the Friday that day you saw, with the horses trampling the
Yeah.
people. And it all just it kind of it blew up. It
Yeah.
blew up that day in a very serious way.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons that so many people are watching your stream is because there's, like, a certain trust that people have with live streamers. Whereas, like, with the news, it's, like, edited, and it could always be edited to fit some sort of, like, certain narrative, and that's the reason so many people watch streamers is because it's happening right in front of your face. Like, there's no editing to make a certain side look bad, like, you're seeing it live. So, that's why I think it's important that the streamers, and I think it was important what you were doing, um, to get it out there, and it's important to have people, showing what's actually going on. How was the media presence? Like, was there, like, camera, like, on every single corner? Like, what was that like?
During the cameras were pretty strategic. So you had guys like Fox and True North and Rebel. They were right in the mix filming what
Yeah.
was happening. But the mainstream media were pretty selective. I remember the one day everyone was chirping them hard because it was either CBC or CTV. They were up on Parliament Hill, and they were facing their camera kind of down towards the empty side of Wellington Street. So, if they tilted it a few degrees, you'd see a whole crowd of people and everyone packed in. And but they tilted it over to the other side, and they had a reporter talking with just kind of a smattering of trucks behind them, because most of the people were crowded in by the stage. And that kind of stuff was so frustrating, because I mean, whether you agree with what's happening or not, the better shot is to turn it and see a big crowd behind them. Like, well, I don't care whether you think we're crazy or not, but like, at least show how many crazy people there are, even if you think we're crazy. At least be honest about what's really happening down here. And we'd see them down on side streets too. Sometimes you'd see the mainstream media down on a side street with just a handful of pickup trucks, pretending like there wasn't 200 semis just the next street over. Lots of that kind of thing. I had at least two interviews with the CTV
Mhm.
and one with the CBC that never aired. So they'd come talk to guys like me. Apparently, I wasn't crazy enough, so they wouldn't use the footage. And then you do an interview, which I thought was an interesting interview, and I shared our viewpoint. And then that night, you'd see a couple guys swinging their t-shirts around their head, yelling "freedom." It's just fine, like nothing wrong with that. But it's funny that they would like rather just show a couple guys swinging their t-shirts around their head than like what I thought was a productive conversation that I
Mhm.
had with the reporter. And it was that kind of thing that you saw all the time. They were very set on painting us as crazies, as dangerous. But yeah, it was. I never had much trust for our media before this, and any semblance of trust was certainly smashed. And I think that was the experience for
Mhm.
many Canadians. Probably will never be able to trust these institutions again.
Yeah, I experienced the same thing. Like, I mean, I'm unbiased. I show both sides, but no matter what side you're on,
Well,
like
like,
you,
don't
they
say you're
should.
not biased. Don't say you're not biased, but you can show both sides, because I
Mhm,
think, Tyson, the important thing, and what sets like an honest reporter apart is you're going to have biases in life, right?
mhm.
You're going to have an angle you take. Like, for example, what's better, baseball or hockey? Tell me what you think is better.
I think baseball is
And
better.
exactly. So you have a bias towards that. And as long
Yeah.
as you acknowledge that and say, hey,
Mhm.
I played baseball my whole life. I love this sport. Um, then, like, you can still be like, have a positive viewpoint and cover a hockey game. But if it's not a great example because it's just sports, but the point
Yeah.
is that, like, you don't need to pretend like you don't prefer baseball. You just need to
Mhm.
be honest about the fact that, hey, baseball's my passion, but I respect people who play other sports, and I want to see your point of view. Tell me why you think hockey is such a great sport. Let me,
Yeah.
like, try to understand you better, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so you don't need to not have biases, because we all have
Yeah.
biases. It's just important to admit those, and then try to mitigate them, or not let them
Yeah.
overwhelm your thinking.
Yeah, so here's like where my kind of thing comes in. Like, I think too much of the media is biased, and I don't think that we have enough people who are just showing both sides. So that's kind of what I want to do. Like, when I go out there, I'm not like trying to pick either side, I'm just showing what's going on. But that's the problem with media, is they don't just show what's going on. Like, I even saw, like, every single Saturday there's like the big rallies in Victoria, right? And
Mm.
I never see like any media there. But like one day I was there on the weekend, there's like a small crowd, and then I saw CBC there. Like, I've never seen CBC there once. And then they're there on the weekday where there's like 7 people there,
Of course,
and
yeah.
then they're interviewing. So again, like, I'm not here to support the convoy. I'm not here to be against the convoy. I'm here to show both sides. But that's the problem with media, is they don't do that. And how can the people ever be informed if their media is always just trying to paint one picture, and not kind of show it all, And that's
Yeah,
kind of my
and just,
thing.
well, news. I mean, there's always been an editorial bend in all, media, going back as far as media's existed. But I think the role of media and news is show what's happening, legitimately show what's happening, and then you can present your angle on it. Of course, we all, whether conscious or unconscious, we have our takes on things. That's what
Yeah.
makes us human, which makes us interesting. But show the event. Okay, so there are 5,000 people who are downtown, Victoria right now, protesting. You don't have to, like, you don't necessarily agree or disagree. It's just, this is a thing that's happening. This is a newsworthy thing. Yeah, because the same thing happens in Toronto. I mean, there were days, some of the World Freedom rallies, where there were, 8 to 10,000 people marching in the streets of downtown Toronto, and just silence from the media. And
Hmm.
but then, there might be 500 people for a cause that they agree with, and they cover that one.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right that it should just be, news should be predominantly about showing what's happening, and then the role of talk shows and other things is to analyze that news. But
Yeah.
some of the only good coverage I saw, actually, shout out to Global. I mean, their coverage wasn't amazing by any stretch, but Global did have a number of segments that just showed what was happening. I don't know if you ever saw any of those, Tyson, but there were some clips from Global that just was literally them walking around, showing some of the trucks, talking to some
Hmm.
of the people, and there wasn't even commentary. And some of the best clips I saw just had zero commentary at all.
Hmm.
It just had a reporter walking around showing what downtown Ottawa was like. So
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do, is just
yeah,
I'm just the guy. I don't really add any of my own commentary. I'm just the guy showing what's going on. And I think that's important to have that for sure. But
as I see one of your viewers there, Joyce, mentions complete silence by about James Top. Right, there's another example where just they've ignored
Mhm.
the fact that James Top even exists.
Yeah. I'm actually
Yeah.
hoping to maybe, have James on my show. It's not, like, official or anything, but that's definitely someone that I'd like to chat with for sure and,
Oh,
hear
have you
his
been in
story.
touch with his team?
I have not, but I think he has an email on his, YouTube
I,
page,
I'll
so
put you. I'll put you in touch with his media coordinator. I'm,
awesome.
I'm sure
Thank
we could
you.
make that happen. Yeah, no problem,
Sweet.
buddy.
I just wanna call us out. Somebody from my baseball team, Jonathan Rennerson, with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Oh, nice.
Just wanna make sure I don't miss any of the super chats. Let's see. Oh, and we got another one from Queenie. Thank you so much for that. Says, "Over here for loud super chat, freedom yell." Thank you, Queenie. Appreciate that. So I just want to kind of go back. So you were starting to get into kind of the police crackdown. You mentioned the lady got trampled by the horse. That's just awful. But kind of go more into depth about that and what that was like.
Yeah. So that Friday, that was on the Friday. I spent most of Friday running back and forth from down to the Hotel Laureate or whatever it's called, and because that's where the front line, as it were, was. But the police were moving really slowly. They were coming up towards Wellington Street, just kind of going truck by truck. And Friday was I only say relatively peaceful because compared to Saturday, it had plenty of violence of its own. But they were moving relatively slow, relatively methodical on Friday, and then they had only covered a few blocks. And what we kind of expected, sorry, what we kind of expected at that point was we're like Friday had come and we're like, you know what? I think we're going to survive the weekend, because that's why I was so worried Thursday, because I thought they were going to push us all out by the weekend. It was Family Day weekend. We knew the hotels were sold out. It was going to be a big crowd. And then we made it to Friday and we thought, you know what, we might actually survive this weekend. And and then obviously the police had the same concerns, which is why I think they upped the whole game on Saturday. But Friday, they obviously underestimated how long it would take them to clear us all out. So they started moving up the street, working truck by truck. They got to near that the fancy Chateau Laurier, that's what's called,
Yeah.
and and then they brought in. That's when they brought in these horses to help widen. I don't know what they claim it was to help move protesters away from police, but like as soon as the horses go by, they all just smush back together. So I'm not really sure what that accomplishes, but it's a power trip. So the horses came through. They I wasn't there when the horses came through, but they came through and ended up running over two people. And that's another. CBC was had cameras on the hotel and had a perfect angle of that whole incident. That night on the news, they showed the horses, but they cut out the part where the people got trampled. And it was already out there on the internet. I'd already seen the TikToks and people had sent me the footage. And but CBC chose to just ignore that clip altogether. Later on, they covered it because it couldn't be ignored. It was all over like New York Times, and like you couldn't ignore it anymore. But they tried to, and they tried to pretend like it didn't happen, but it sure did. So that Friday, yeah, I was moving back and forth from Wellington Street, just like you got to understand that down there, it was the only way you knew whether something was really happening was you either had to have a trusted contact down in that area or be down there with your own eyes. And so most of my contacts were west on Wellington, and I didn't know as many people east. And so if I wanted to know what was really happening there, I had to run down because we'd get reports of like, oh, like it's chaos, and the police are like smashing all the windows and arresting everyone. And then I'd get down there and the police hadn't moved yet. And so it was difficult to know what was really going on,
Yeah.
even for us right there on the street. And which again is, you mentioned the importance of the streamers, because even for us on the street, if I had known what streamer was down there, I would have been able to see exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, they tried to move up that street on Friday. It didn't go very fast, and then they ended up running over those people with the horse, and then everything stopped. They just
Yeah.
didn't move anymore after that.
Mhm.
And then we thought, okay, well maybe they're going to hold off for the weekend. And So that Friday night, I went back to the shed, and I basically spent that whole night awake in the shed again. And I made it to, I forget what time it was. Was it 3 or 4 in the morning? And I thought, okay, they haven't struck yet. And I went and checked down again. They hadn't moved. The police hadn't moved. Everything was quiet. So I thought, okay, maybe I can go get a few hours sleep in the hotel. So I went back to my hotel, which was just a few blocks away. Got a couple hours sleep. Wake up to a bunch of phone calls. The police are moving again. They're moving again. And so I ran. And then when I came out of my hotel, and they'd put all these fences up to block off Wellington Street.
Mhm.
Um, I I managed to, one of the cops turned a blind eye to me. He saw me. He looked right at me, and I just kept going, and he didn't do anything. And so I was able to get past him and get back onto Wellington Street. And by the time I got up to the shed, the police had already moved up, were coming towards the stage. They just went hard and fast. They
Yeah.
were beating people, smashing things, arresting everybody. So by the time I got up there, they had already made it up towards the stage. So I hopped into the shed, fired up the live stream, and got the cameras going. And yeah, if you look to it's called The Last Stand of the Shed,
Yeah.
and you can see that footage. Oh, we got Coda B in the chat here.
Hey, Coda.
Yeah, peace, love, freedom. Dave, Tyson, love you both. You're amazing. Big shout out from Coda B to you. Yeah, Coda B 123, fellow Ottawa streamer there. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Did you meet Coda when you were in Ottawa?
Yeah, we came across each other a few
Awesome.
times, and yeah, he gave me some tips too. And actually, his was the first time I saw one of those Steadicam things, or
Oh, the gimbal.
the gimbal thing. And
Oh, yeah.
I asked him what's that, and then he told me, and I ended up getting one too. So
Oh, awesome.
he had more experience than me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, where is it? I get the live stream up and running, and then I don't know how long you'd have to look at the stream, but not too long after, police start moving in. They fire off the tear gas canisters. They start shooting rubber bullets into the crowd. They just start beating people. Um, yeah, you can see the video of people just being beat in front of the shed. Um, and I just committed in that moment of like, okay, I'm not leaving. I guess I'm getting arrested. And it's funny because my mother was texting me, and she didn't know. My mom didn't know about my live stream yet, which is probably for the best. She didn't know I had a live stream, and so she would have been much more terrified had she been watching the live stream, because the police were moving in and beating people and throwing smoke grenades and stuff. And my mom texted me and said, "Isn't it time that you maybe come home?" She says. And I said, "It's fine, Mom. I'll be okay." And this was minutes before the police burst through the door of the shed. So I just sat down on the bench beside the computer and just was like, okay, I'm going to keep this live stream going as long as I can, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, police. I heard them on the roof. They went up on top of the shed. I heard them arresting Peaceman, and I could see it on the cameras, and everyone just like screaming, and I could see the smoke, the tear gas coming out from the crowd, and it was like, yeah, it was the most traumatic thing I've ever
Yeah,
been a
it's gotta
part
be
of,
traumatic. Yeah.
to say the least.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I didn't realize actually just how traumatizing it was till, well, many of my viewers would have seen when I was at Rolling Thunder and ended up having a bit of a panic attack on live TV there.
Yeah.
Um, and just it all kind of came rushing back. But they, yeah, so there's the screaming and the stomping on the roof, and then finally I kind of knew it was going to come, but I just waited there, and then someone kicks open the door. There's a big rifle pointed right at my chest, and I'm just
Mhm.
standing there, hands to my side. I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving. I'm leaving." I think that, yeah, I know you'd have to listen to the audio. You can hear the audio because the mic was on in the shed, and
Mhm.
he's just, "Get on the ground, get on the ground." So put me on the ground, like put a knee on my back and cuff me up, and um, yeah, and then you can see in the video, they led me outside and kind of passed me from one officer to another, and it was freezing cold too. That day was not well, the whole thing was freezing cold, but that day was especially really cold. They lined me up on the sidewalk with a bunch of other people who'd been arrested, and then they put my charges on a whiteboard. So somewhere out there is a photo of me holding this whiteboard with my charges on it, out in the freezing cold. And but then I came to an officer, and very thankful for this officer, because as I was about to explain myself to her, she cut me off and said, "Stop, stop, stop, stop right there." I was like, "Okay." And she says, "I don't have enough information to charge you, so I'm going to let you go." And I said, "Thank you so much." She said, "Aren't you glad you didn't say anything?" Is what she said to me. And so, and that's just worth pointing out, because she didn't have to do that. She could have thrown the book at me like some officers did to people. And there were so many men and women in uniform like that who backed us. I mean, I know that woman supported us, or at the very least was not comfortable with arresting us. We had officers helping us with fuel delivery, and by helping I mean ignoring, even when they made it illegal, they would just ignore that we were there. We had officers even turning other officers away, like to give
Yeah.
us room to do our deliveries. And there were many officers working, giving us tips from the inside. Yeah, there was certainly not a unified hatred by any means,
Yeah.
either direction. Many good men and women within the police force. Um, and so yeah, she let me off without charges, but I was still loaded into a van,
Yeah.
well cuffed, and then they drove me like half an hour out of the city, dropped me in a parking lot like some rabid animal or something. And then thankfully there was someone from Bikers Church waiting there to pick people like me up. So the people from Bikers Church drove me to their church and helped take care of me. But man, that day it was crazy. We didn't know where people were. We didn't know who'd been arrested, who'd been beat. People weren't
Yeah.
answering their phones. That whole afternoon, just calling people, trying to find out if everyone was okay. Yeah, it was pretty messed up. I basically sat at the church, just kind of in stunned silence for the whole afternoon, trying to
Yeah.
reach out and see who was still out there.
What
Um,
even would have been the charges? Like, you're just sitting in the shed doing, like, nothing, just like, do you get arrested for, like, live streaming? Like
it was obstruction, mischief, and failure to comply with a court order.
hmm,
Something, most of the people's charges were some combination of
yeah,
those things. So, and man, there were people arrested who like literally got there that day. Like
yeah,
there was people who just showed up that day, and it was it seemed to me to be a total gong show. I think they had a few specific targets that they were after. They might have identified guys like me and Jay as kind of involved more, and so maybe that's why they were looking for me. But yeah, it's hard to know, because other people like my friend Tyler, he tried to get arrested. He got out of his truck and he's like, "This is my truck. Take me, like, fine." And then they just kept pushing him away, and he's like, "Okay, I guess you don't want to arrest me." But
hmm,
then other drivers, they ripped him out of their truck, pepper spray them, and cuff them. And I was like, so I don't know if it. I guess just whether the cop had a heart or not. I don't know, but it seemed really random. Some guys got crap beat out of them, and some guys got let go without nothing. So it was
yeah.
strange.
So did you end up going back into the city of Ottawa after you were released, or did you kinda stay clear from that area?
Oh, I was right back in there. Yeah, so I came right after I got dropped off, I got taken to the Bikers Church, which is
Yeah,
like just on the edge of just east of the city. And then yeah, I spent a few hours kind of getting my head clear, figuring out who was arrested and who wasn't, and who was good, and it was just a little chaos. But then yeah, I headed back to my hotel, um and I just yeah, went downtown there trying to, but it was scary down there. There was cops everywhere. It was like something out of a war movie. There's just like they'd all question you. And the I mean, I had a hotel, so that like I had to show my hotel key. I had to prove that I was at a hotel, etc. Um, but if you didn't have that, then people were getting blocked away. If you brought out a flag, you'd get like harassed and threatened to be arrested. Even that day, there were still little groups that tried to form. That evening, back at my hotel, there was a group that was just waving flags and singing "Oh Canada," and these guys came in and started pepper spraying them all. So I remember a guy running towards the hotel. He'd just been pepper sprayed, like a
Yeah.
big Eastern European man, and it's just like screaming. And so we ran into the hotel to like find some milk to help douse his eyes. And like it was like being in a third world war zone. It was the
Yeah.
strangest experience ever. And this is right in downtown Ottawa. Those next couple days were weird. So we had a lot of people that were kind of trapped in the downtown, and it was dangerous to leave your
Yeah.
hotel. And so we were sneaking around trying to get people out of the city. So the next couple days I spent like we actually, I had a contact who's just a lovely couple that gave me a ride one evening and gave me their number in case I ever needed a ride. So I called them, and they helped me shuttle people in and out of one of the hotels. So they would come down in, and they had to like to get to, it took about half an hour to make a 5-minute drive into the downtown. So the only way they were allowed into the downtown is they had to call the hotel, ask for the specific name of the person they were picking up, and then the hotel would confirm that that person was indeed at the hotel, and then the cop would let them go through to pick them up. And so we did this with, about a dozen people or so at the one hotel that I was staying at, and just trying to get these people out of the city. Yeah, just
Yeah.
completely mind-boggling to do something like that. And this was trying to get people out. We're trying to send these people
Yeah.
home, trying to get them out of the city. Jay was he'd been charged. My friend Jay, the owner of the shed truck, had 4 charges. He was not allowed back in the downtown without facing arrest, and so I had to settle up his hotel rooms and stuff that he'd booked for him. And just there were all sorts of these like little bits and pieces like that was going on. Those next couple days, I committed to staying downtown for another week. I extended my hotel, just to, well, one, to make sure we had somebody like a trusted contact downtown to keep track on what was happening down there, and then also, yeah, get everyone out, and then to get the trucks back, because that was another big piece of it.
Yeah. So as this goes on, I'm kind of getting more glad that I wasn't there. As I mentioned earlier, I feel like I missed out, but now I'm kind of grateful that I wasn't there. um
Well, you could have left before it got crazy. We
that
we,
that's true. That's true.
we
Yeah.
encouraged most of the young people to maybe not stick
hmm
around. So,
But you know me, I would have tried to get right in there with my
oh, I'm
camera.
sure you would have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
we might have had
Probably.
to drag you out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did they like end up actually getting the trucks out? Because the trucks just kind of parked in like lanes and then they just like parked there? Like how what was the process of like removing them? Like what like couldn't in theory the truckers just like get out of their trucks and just leave? Like I thought I heard somewhere that they parked strategically in a way that they couldn't be towed. So how
Yeah,
kind of was that like how did that kind of go?
yeah, that's true. We definitely we did our best and not make it easy. So yeah, guys were chaining themselves together, and people took off tires, and they were parking in different formations to try to make it difficult. But I mean, the some of the I've seen some of the footage, but they came in there just like they came with the cops with the tow trucks. They came in hard and fast too. They were just throwing chains on anywhere they could and reefing these things out of there. And that's why a number of trucks were damaged in the process, because um, and then they drove some of the trucks out there too, which, as I understand it, is not legal. That they're not allowed to drive someone else's truck. But anyway, it's minor and compared to all the other illegal stuff they did. But yeah, they were just, you can see some footage that's kicking around the internet of just them pulling vehicles apart. And it wasn't like, not gonna lie, it's impressive how quickly they managed
Yeah.
to get them out. I mean, at the same time, there were a number of guys who, when push came to shove, and certainly nothing against any of them, they decided it wasn't worth risking losing their truck, and could totally appreciate that. So there were a number of guys that disconnected some chains and headed out before they were towed out.
Mhm.
Um, and But yeah, even still, it was impressive how quickly they managed to pull that out.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. So they really cracked down. Like what day was the Emergencies Act invoked? Like how long was the turnover from the Emergencies Act being invoked to the time that they really started cracking down? Like, what day was it that that was invoked?
Oh, I'd have to check but it was all within a couple
Yeah.
days.
It feels like it happened so fast, you know? Like, as soon as that was enacted, like, everything kinda, um, you know, kinda went crazy from there.
Yeah, yeah, I'd have to check whether it was all within a couple days of. Oh, we got there's from Coda B there. Nothing will stop us from being peaceful and fighting for our freedoms. Love is key. Shout out to Dave and Tyson and all the mods. Thanks again, Coda. All within a couple days of each other. So whether the um, emergency act was it like the Wednesday or Thursday or something, and then
Yeah.
it was all gotten rid of by the Monday. Like it was all
Mhm.
within a few days. They brought it in. They came in hard and fast, and they cleared it out. And I
Yeah.
believe that part of the reason for that was it looks like it wasn't going to pass the Senate. So the Emergency Act can be brought in, and then they have 3 days to use it before it's
Mhm.
ratified in the Senate. And it was looking like it might not actually be ratified in the Senate. It might have got voted down,
Yeah.
which would have been embarrassing for the government. So instead, I think the whole plan was do this hard and fast, and then we'll pull out and we'll say like, hey, look, we didn't need, we can cancel the Emergency Act. It's all good, and not risk the embarrassment of the Emergency Act being not ratified by the Senate. So,
Yeah.
as best I can tell, that's why they moved so quick on that,
Mhm.
just to try to get it done with before anyone had
Yeah. So before
anything to
and
say.
before it, like, even really got passed, right? That's
Mhm.
kinda like the saying, "It's easier to get forgiveness than permission." Like, they didn't even fully get it passed, and they went and did
Well,
that?
to be clear, the legislature does allow for because it's designed for like a war. So it's like
Yeah.
the Americans are invading and bombs are dropping, and they need to enact it now so they can do the action they need to do. They need to move people into shelter. They need to prepare defenses, and so it's essentially it's for proper emergencies where there's no time for debate, there's no time to discuss this. We just need to start acting, and then as
Yeah.
soon as possible we debate it and we ratify it in the Senate. And so that's why the legislature allows for it to be enacted immediately, because
Yeah.
it's supposed to be an emergency. It's not supposed to be a bunch of bouncy castles, barbecues, and a few trucks parked on the street. That's called an annoyance at best, not an emergency. Like I get it was annoying. It was supposed to be annoying. Like it's a protest, okay? Like I don't think anyone was like pretending like it wasn't annoying. It definitely it caused some disruptions, although far less than like what they acted like it. And yeah, there was some honking, but people also lost their jobs, and our economy was crippled, and these forced vaccinations. So I mean, a little honking and some disruptions to Burger King, if that's the price we need to pay to for freedom, then I think it was worth it, obviously. So,
Yeah, and that was the first time in Canadian history that that was enacted, right? That
well, the
emergency.
first time of that version, but yeah, so it's
Mhm.
based on a piece of legislature like the War Measures Act, and now it's
Yeah.
called the Emergency Measures Act. But the only other
Mhm.
times it was used was what the two world wars and like a major terrorist threat in Quebec.
Hmm.
And so two world wars, a terrorist attack, and then like I said, truckers parked in the street. So
Yeah. Hmm.
welcome to Canada. Trudeau's Canada, at least.
Trish, I'm not just gonna leave you up here.
Yeah,
I'm gonna thank you. Thank you for that, Trish. As thanks to everyone who supports content creators, Tyson and Dave. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for that, Trish. I also had Wilson said 48 hours. So he was talking about the Emergency Act. So 48 hours since the Emergencies Act was invoked, did the police come in and kind of crack down on the protesters? I'm not
yeah.
sure if that's accurate, but that's
No, it was
what
in that.
Wilson
It was
says
all
here.
very fast. I mean, like, I wish I'd kept a journal of those days, but there really wasn't time for it.
Yeah.
Every day was wild. It's really hard to even communicate, even in a format like this, of like these days where you never knew what was gonna happen. So, for example, the one night, um, shout out to my fuel delivery buddy who will remain nameless. But the first time I met him, we were I was just walking the streets one of the first nights trying to figure out what was going on, and this guy showed up delivering fuel, and I said, "Oh, let me help you with that." And so I grabbed a jerry can and I'm like, "Where are we going?" He said, "We're supposed to go to like a white truck at this intersection." And so we get to that intersection and there's no white truck. And so we like
Mm,
verify that information. They're like, "No, definitely there was a request from a white truck at this intersection." And anyway, nobody was there, and
huh.
this ended up happening like a whole bunch, nights like that where we were told that this happened, and so you'd like run to that spot to help. I remember being told there was a child that was like freezing to death in a truck, and so we're all running around trying to find this this kid that's supposedly in a truck, and
Yeah.
everyone's worried about it, and we're knocking on doors, and so it's like, I haven't seen a kid here. There's no kid here. Do you know there's a kid here? No. Someone gets on the CB. Is there any kids here? No, there's no kids here. So, and they're like, where did this information come from? I don't know.
Yeah.
It could have been someone saw something online, who texted a friend who was there, who texted someone else, who said to a driver that this was happening, and it was like the ultimate rumor mill. So you never knew whether you were chasing some kind of fantasy or reality.
Do you think some of it could have been, like, opposition to the convoy just trying to get everybody, like, running around in circles and, like, by spreading false information?
No, I tend to, and maybe some people might call me naive, but I tend to point to just human incompetence, and I tend to find, though, just like government, I tend to take the incompetence side rather than the conspiracy side. I think there's other things potentially at play, but on the very surface level, people. Yeah, people meant well and they got over keen, but they weren't overly competent, and their energy and their keenness didn't quite line up with their competency level, and so they would try to be helpful, and it often wasn't helpful, and I saw that happening a lot at the
Yeah.
convoy. So I maybe that there was some interference from other sides, but I think most of it was just genuine confusion, lack of communication lines, so many
Mhm.
different people trying to work together.
Yeah. Well, that's got me thinking of a question that I probably should have asked earlier as we're kind of wrapping up now, but maybe you could quickly touch on this. How was, like, the counter protest presence? Was there a lot of counter protesters? Because I remember seeing on the news they would show, like, big crowds. I'm not sure. Like, how was that?
First, just want to acknowledge Anonymous there. Thanks for the super chat. I support Trish's comment supporting content creators. Really appreciate that. And then Robin Boostrom there. Keep up the great work, Tyson and Dave. Yeah, we do really appreciate it, guys. And a lot of people. Well, you know Tyson from learning this game of. It's crazy too. Even a conversation like this might end up getting demonetized because of what we
Yeah.
talk about, and then you have to put it through a review process, and
Yeah.
then it might
Yeah.
take 48 hours to review it. By then, everyone who's watched it is going to watch it, so then you don't
Yeah.
make anything on it
Yeah.
anyway.
I'm pretty much at the point where, like, everything I upload now gets a stupid yellow, money
Yeah,
sign next to it. Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
It's same for me.
yeah,
Welcome to the club.
it's rare for me to upload a video and, see a green dollar sign next
Yeah,
to it.
but
Yeah.
that's why you do it for the passion. But
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
well, you get free rent. That helps. You got a cheat
yeah.
code there, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, but when it comes to YouTube, like, I truly don't really care about the
No,
money.
I know
Like,
you.
of course it helps though, because like, the software I'm using right now, I have to pay 19 bucks a month now to, keep it running, so of course the super chats helps with stuff like that. I
Yeah,
also bought my gimbal with money I made from the super chats, but aside from, like, reinvesting the money into, like, equipment, I'm a 14-year-old. I don't need, like, a whole bunch of money. I do YouTube, 1, because I believe people deserve the truth and what's happening, and, that people could actually see, like, what's really going on from a clear, non-biased point of view, just see what's going on, and, 2, because I love doing it, but
yeah.
without a doubt, the donations do help with
No, and
stuff
it
like
comes
that.
across so clearly in your stuff, man. That's what I
Yeah.
I immediately, when I was showing your channel for the first time, I said this kid's got some passion. So I'm happy that we've been able to connect. But you were asking about counter protesters.
Yeah.
Shockingly, Hardly any. And
Mhm.
that one of the ways that I knew how successful, how supportive, how popular this was, and because there wasn't really counter protesters,
Yeah.
there was some like angry people on Twitter of like, oh, we hate them, blah blah blah. But like down there, you have 100,000 people supporting this, and then maybe it'd say two or three in the day that would, carry a sign of like "go home" or whatever.
Yeah.
And this, I'm including here the people of Ottawa too, because it is absolute a lie to talk like the city of Ottawa was unified on this. Yes, there were people who were obviously very frustrated, wanted rid of us, but like every day, literally every day, I'd meet people, and this became a thing for Ottawa residents. They'd always introduce themselves as Ottawa residents. They'd come up to you and say, "I'm an Ottawa resident," hand you some money and thank you for being there. And like this happened on the daily. So clearly, a lot of support from the people of Ottawa. No unified opposition to us. Like I said, one or two stragglers of counter
Mhm.
protesters, and like I don't know if they were scared. Absolutely, clearly nothing to be scared about. Even but I mean, that's what Trudeau wanted to play that up. That's why he had to go hide at his bunker or whatever he did. And you know what's funny about that? Friends of mine are members of parliament, and they had to walk every day through the protest to get to work.
Yeah.
Right. So it's so dangerous that our prime minister has to go hide in a bunker. But my buddy who's an MP, he's got to walk every day through it. It's just like, hey, if it's so dangerous, why why are you letting me walk back and forth through this thing a couple times a day? Like he'd go out for lunch and walk by it, go get a coffee, walk through the protest again. And all the members of parliament and the staffers were all doing this. It's like clearly they didn't actually think there was a threat to anyone. Because if there was, why would you allow the members of parliament to be exposed to a threat?
Yeah.
And because they knew there was no threat. Clearly, there was no threat. They knew what we were about. Um, and so, yeah, a handful of counter protesters. There was yeah, one lady who'd come out sometimes at night and she had a little sign that I don't remember. It's like fascist or something. Yeah, but
Yeah.
even they were respectful. Shout out to Canadians for the most part. We're pretty nice about our protesting. I mean, yeah, like even the counter protesters, it was pretty friendly. I had a chat with a couple of them too, and um, I didn't get a hug like from our protesters, but they'd converse with me, and we'd had open dialogue, and of course I celebrate that. I welcome peaceful counter protests. That's how it's part of how we tell. Like I said, it's part of how I could tell how popular this was because there wasn't really counter
Mhm.
protests. It was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on my show.
You're gonna
plan
ditch
to
already?
I plan to kind of go for an hour. Is there anything that we didn't touch on during this interview that you think is important that you share?
Oh man, the you could go on
Yeah.
with
I'm
stories.
gonna have to have you on again
Do you
for
got to get
sure.
going, or you want to wrap up, or what?
I could keep going. I don't have to get going. I just kind of planned in my mind to go for an hour. I'm
Oh,
I'm free
well, you
though.
got to just roll with the flow, man. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
no,
true.
I could keep going for a little bit because
Sure.
we
Let's
want
do
to
it.
get into.
Mhm.
I don't want to have to go through the whole story again sometime, so we'll get it all
Yeah.
out in like one segment. So,
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
um, only if you. Sorry, you're in charge. You're in
Oh
charge.
no. Oh
I'm not
no.
forcing you.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
But yeah, we got everyone out of the city. We it's mostly like some mostly truckers and some kind of people like me who are more involved that were still there. And then these trucks had all been taken to an impound lot, and we were told 7 days. And like, what a crazy way to get trucks. You want to get these people out of the city, so you impound their vehicles for 7 days. Like that makes a lot of sense. So anyway, the vehicles get impounded, and so and that was a whole process too, finding out where the vehicles were. So we spent a couple of days asking around and figuring out where the vehicles were. And um, this is about the time when I started doing the kind of podcast, more traditional
Yeah.
streaming thing. So after it was almost like a therapy thing for me after everyone cleared out. And then I'm getting all these messages like what's going on, and in that first video I was sitting in my hotel and just kind of gave an explanation on what had happened, and then I started making a few videos that week I walked around the downtown showing people the fences and how empty everything was,
Yeah.
and that's when I started doing the first kind of like more what people think of as streaming, and took the camera off the mount and actually started walking around filming things. And then I went with the drivers to the impound lot, and yeah, it was crazy. I mean, a lot of people watched that video of there were the windows were all left open. uh, Tyler's truck was left running, so it
Mhm.
run totally dry on the diesel, which is really bad for a diesel.
Yeah.
And there was money stolen from vehicles. There were these signs on some of the trucks that said "Caution: Video recording may be occurring,"
Yeah.
and that was the police put that up to warn other police that there were cameras on some of these trucks, which I just thought was
Hmm.
hilarious. That it's like, do you really have such little trust in your police force that you can't tow a vehicle and drop it off at an impound lot without being worried about it, right?
Yeah.
So I did that video, and then I thought my job was done because I'd kind of committed in my head that, you know what, I committed to help take care of these drivers on Wellington. Everyone's got their trucks back. All, I kind of did what I set out to do, took care of these guys. We stood till the end, and like, let's get out of here. And then I just happened to, right before leaving, that's when I heard about Iconic Cafe, right? And that was the first kind of dabble into journalism. Did you follow that whole situation with Iconic Cafe?
Um, I'm not sure. We might be thinking about different things. I think I might have seen a video where they're like in a cafe or something, and the police are like trying to break down the
Yeah,
door. Is that the same? Yeah. Yeah, I
that's the
saw
guy.
that.
Tri-
Hmm.
what is I saw Trish said here? Tyler's like, no, let's go play baseball. The Well, if I'm keeping you from a baseball game, by all
Oh
means.
no, no. I picked a day where I was free. So,
Oh,
I mean,
perfect.
in theory, we could go all night. I mean, if you still have important stuff to talk about, I'm
No,
free to go all night for sure.
I'll finish the tale for you. So the yeah, so then the Iconic Cafe thing happened. Yeah, he kicked the police out of his restaurant. This was back at the Convoy. He was someone who helped out a lot. He hosted people at his restaurant. He was open and like generous to people. And then the police like shut him down and kicked him out of his restaurant. And so I just happened to turn on the camera, and when I was talking to him and film that, and then that ended up like blowing up. And it all these things really showed me, it made me all the more angry at media because I saw
Mhm,
what amazing force for good. And I think you've seen a bit of that in your own work of the great positive work that media can be, where you can tell these untold stories. You can share, these wounds that need healed, and you can be this gateway of communication between the elites and the lower downs. And it's something that it's a very powerful tool, and it can change lives in a very positive way. And it's so sad to see how our mainstream media chooses to use that as a tool for propaganda and pushing government agendas rather than speaking up for the little guy and actually telling the news.
mhm,
Um, because yes, there's that piece of telling the news, but then there's also the piece of sharing stories and like helping people. Um, so did that story of Iconic Cafe, the Give Send Go ended up blowing up, and like
mhm.
he raised over $60,000 to help him
Wow.
start a new restaurant.
Yeah,
And then I was kind of hooked. So then I kept doing this, and saw, you know what, until if it ceases to be effective and it's just like if it's just me wasting my time, then I'll go back to my day job and I'll shut down the channel, and I have no interest in wasting anyone's time. But so long as I can keep making a positive impact, I'll keep making videos. And so
yeah.
that
Same for me.
that essentially brings us to where we are here. We're still doing
Yeah.
these videos and trying to get the
Mhm.
news out there.
So just to back up a little bit, so that video of the police smashing down the doors of that cafe, was that taken by you? Because I think I originally saw that on like Twitter from like Rebel
No,
News or something.
no, there was it was so that's what brought Iconic Cafe to the spotlight, where they embarrassed the police. I forget the guy's name. I did talk to the guy who filmed it, but there's a guy who filmed it, just put it out there, and it ended up blowing up online. And then it would seem almost as like punishment for, because that video made the cops look bad, and so they showed up, later, and they gave him a bunch of tickets, and they ended up evicting him. He ended up getting tickets in his restaurant while it was empty. So he was, after he was being evicted, he was there getting rid of his stuff, and they gave him a no mask ticket in his own empty restaurant, which is just
Mm.
absolutely insanity. So no, that original video blew up, and that's how people knew about Iconic Cafe. And then I just happened to do a little video where I was filming him like emptying out his restaurant,
Mhm.
and then Teresa, who my viewers will know, set up a Give Send Go, and then it just ended up blowing up. And that's what I
Yeah.
meant of just how just sharing this story and putting a link up can end up impacting someone's life in such a powerful way,
Yeah.
for good or for bad. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind as you keep doing
Mhm.
what you're doing, that it can be a very positive force for good, and I hope you'll keep
Exactly.
using it that way.
Yeah. So what exactly was he getting in trouble for? Just, like, for inviting in the protesters?
Yeah. So the whole story in Ottawa was that, right, we were disrupting business, we were the baddies, and he broke that narrative, and he left his restaurant open, and he was packed. He told us how he made he made back almost like the money he'd lost that year in,
Yeah.
in a few weeks of being open,
You
because
would think you'd think it'd be a good business strategy to just stay open
oh
during
yeah,
it,
and
right?
there were a number of businesses that did, and they made a killing. The one guy I talked to, like a shawarma place, he ended up being open like 12 hours a day. He was usually only open for like lunch and dinner, but he just opened up as much as he possibly could,
Yeah.
because it was just bankroll, because
Mhm.
people wanted to warm up, so then they'd buy some shawarma, buy a coffee, hang out, buy another shawarma, tell their friends to buy a shawarma, and there was lineups in and out of the doors of these places like all through the day. Timmy's and McDonald's never had such good business in downtown Ottawa than we were there. Literally lineups, down the street all day, every day. So it's complete lies about the businesses. The only businesses that struggled were either chose to shut down or the government forced them. Like in the case of the mall was shut down, but not because of the individual owners. That there was, however that works, but there was pressure from on high, and the mall itself was closed, so then the restaurants and such in the mall couldn't do a business. But anyone
Yeah.
who chose to stay open did great. There were many people like Enrico. It just his story really really caught people's attention, with just especially how poorly he was treated, being evicted from his restaurant. But there's no doubt stories that we never heard, and I was never able to cover, of others who may have been, that the city may have come after them afterwards, because
Yeah.
they know who the restaurants are that stayed open, and I wouldn't doubt that their lives are more difficult now. But good for them for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that I'm congratulating someone for just running a business. It's like
Yeah.
you're a hero. You sold coffee and donuts. But this is where we are at a country, right? This is, you're a hero because you stayed open and sold coffee and donuts. Because we have a crazy government that wants to shut you down from selling your coffee and donuts when they decide that you're not allowed to sell coffee and donuts. It's just, I sometimes I feel like I'm living in a literal movie. Like I can't
Yeah.
hardly comprehend that this is, I am sitting here spending my evening telling the government that they shouldn't stop people from running their businesses. Uh, wow, crazy times, isn't it? Well,
Yeah. So you mentioned that McDonald's and Timmy's were open and that they had long lines. Were
oh
they
yeah.
punished for being open? Because you wouldn't think that they'd go after, like, big established companies like McDonald's and Tim Hortons. Do you know anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I wondered that too. Of like, because like right across the road from Enrico's there was a Subway, and they were open too. So, but I never heard of any repercussions, and I would doubt so, because they have their big, they have their big legal teams. They can fight
Mhm.
this, and it yeah, they are better able to defend themselves. It's the little guys that you can push around,
Yeah.
and you could shove down. So I doubt that there was any recourse for places like Subway and Tim Hortons and McDonald's,
Mhm.
because they're tough targets, and where someone, and it was really backward how Enrico was treated, because legitimately he was behind on rent, but so were, most businesses down there, and he was paying back his rent because of the money he made at the
Yeah.
Convoy. And then they just cut him off out of the blue and
Mm.
said, "You're out of here." Conveniently, it just, the timing and how it all went down was pretty obvious what was going on.
Yeah.
But they had, at the base of it, they had this like excuse to use, whereas I doubt that was the case for something like a Tim Hortons or McDonald's.
Hmm.
There wasn't that initial excuse to kind of start the push of them out of there. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the differences there too. But it's also easier to, it's always easier to beat it. Well, I mean, if you're a big bully at a school, are you going to go after the guy who's your twice your size, or are you going to go after the little skinny guy? No, of course. Every
Exactly.
every bully knows you go pick on the scrawny guy, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what we have as a government. It's like, oh no, ooh, they could put up a fight. Oh, well, but let's get that guy. We'll go beat
Yeah.
that guy up and make a point out of him.
Hmm.
Um, this is welcome to Justin's Canada, where we can compare them quite effectively to a schoolyard bully. That's where we're at as a nation.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, kind of just to like back up a little bit, because I mentioned in my interview I did with you that the two people that I heard of the convoy through was Ottawax and Pat King. So I heard of Pat King through this other streamer I can't remember, and I remember I was watching him like driving into Ottawa to focus on packing. Was he, because I know he was probably like one of the first people that the police is going for. Was he arrested like the Saturday or before? Like when did kind of his arrest take place, and were you kind of involved with that?
I don't remember offhand when he was arrested. I wasn't following his story that closely, and
Yeah.
what's interesting there, and it makes for an interesting discussion, because they the government wanted to just lay the law. They're still laying the law down on him. He's still not out of jail, by the way. And
Mhm.
quick update for those following that. My contact who is in touch regularly with Pat, hopeful that he may be able to get out this week, but no guarantees. And it's just absolutely insane that this man is still in prison. And so the government, he was, they made him the spokesperson. Essentially, they decided that, okay, we're gonna lay the law down this guy. And as best I can tell, his crime was being successful on TikTok. He was very outspoken, and a lot of people were following him. But by no means, like, if as far as just actual activities on the ground, I'm as worthy of prison as he is. Like,
Yeah.
there were so many of us that were delivering fuel, delivering food, just helping take care of drivers. Like, it's they're clearly, it's just a political prisoner. They're just making an example out of him. And what's Tamara's crime? Having a successful fundraiser. Like, they just picked these people that they wanted to make examples of. And so I didn't know Pat personally, and I hadn't met him, and I hadn't even seen many of his videos, because as I got more involved, the people that I was meeting that were involved with that, yeah, they said Pat's his own guy. He does his thing.
Yeah.
He serves his purpose, but like, he's not like a part of. He wasn't a part of the structures that I started working with, and
Hmm.
he, like I said, his crime was being a successful media influencer, and for that they wanted to hold him up as this leader, so they could smash him down and punish him, which is, yeah, just was a pure propaganda campaign against him. And so I wasn't really, I wasn't following what was happening with him, but I had heard, yeah, that he got arrested there. And yeah, the arrests were all over the place, because I mean, I know people who were very deeply involved with management and everything from earlier stages, and then they didn't even get their bank accounts frozen, or they never even got a slap on the wrist. And then
Yeah.
other people, um, like Pat, who are more involved on a periphery sense, then they, like, he's in prison still.
Yeah.
It was just like, they just kind of made it up as they went. There's people out there who one person's facing a lawsuit and they had time in prison and they had their bank accounts frozen and they literally did like the same job as someone else who got off with nothing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they
Hmm.
it seems like they were just kind of grabbing at thin air, trying to throw charges and see. But something weird is very much going on with Pat. I was shocked when I heard how he's being treated still, and yeah, I've been doing what I can to try to bring some more attention to that, and but we're hopeful that he'll be able to get out soon here. But
Yeah.
it's absolutely um, it's absolutely insane.
So one of the other people that was kind of involved with it, Tamara Litch. So
Yeah.
she's out on bail, but she has like very strict conditions. Like I believe she has like a ban from social media, and she has like a ban from Ottawa. Do you think that if Pat does get released on bail, that he'll have the same like restrictions from using his platform to reach people?
Yeah. First off, thanks, Vic BC Live. Sharing a little love your way as well. Thanks to you and Tyson both for the excellent interview. Yeah, I got to meet Vic BC over a Zoom call
Yeah.
thing, and I love the little community you guys have out there. In for a little island, you guys are making a big punch in the freedom movement. So good on you guys. Um, yeah. So the um, I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think they're trying to beat Pat down to the point that he will sign um, like a gag order, basically like a non-disclosure that they're going to, not a non-disclosure, gag order, better term, but they're going to try to force him to a place of where he will agree to not speak up on this. Um, they fear his voice, obviously, and so as best I can tell, that's what's going on. They're trying to wear him down mentally, get him to a point where he'll sign anything they put in front of him. And yeah, no doubt they'll want a gag order where he can't go on social media, he can't talk about this. They'll want him out
Yeah.
of the province, which is just absolutely there's no, I'm no lawyer, but there's no way it's constitutionally allowed to just ban someone from a province. Like I'm unclear. I mean, maybe there'd be justification for like keeping him out of the city of Ottawa if they felt that was dangerous, but what do you mean he's not allowed in Thunder Bay? You know, is that it just to just restrict his travel in that manner? But I mean, obviously they don't care. They still restrict my travel. I still can't get on an airplane. So what you'd think would be common sense and basic laws of this country are not in play here. So I think they're going to try to get as long a list or longer for Pat as they did for Tamara. They're going to try to. He is very hurting and he is very damaged, and they're going to take advantage of that to try to get him to sign on the dotted line. And I think you've got it right on there, that's exactly what they're trying
Hmm.
to do, and it's disgusting
Yeah.
because that's not just like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
manipulation, it's coercion, it's not right, it's not justice.
Yeah, and Pat has a massive platform. Like I said, he was one of the people I first found out of it through. I think I was watching one of his Facebook streams, and again, it was from his perspective driving into Ottawa, and I think he had like 10,000 people watching a live stream. So without a doubt, he was definitely able to influence a lot of people. So I'm probably pretty positive that if they were to let him out on bail, there would be that kind of restriction on his social media for sure. Because he has the ability to reach a lot of people, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I hope that I hope that that's not the case. I mean, it's easy for me on the outside to say, oh, you shouldn't agree to that, but I completely understand why someone in that position is going. He shouldn't be in that position where he has to choose between his ability to get out of prison and to speak out on this issue, because the whole world needs to hear exact, because based on what I'm hearing from people who have visited him and are in direct communication with him, the whole world does need to hear how he has been treated, and it's disgusting. And he has a right to speak up on that, for how he's been a political prisoner and how he's been abused. through that process, and so I hope his lawyer can figure out a way to not end up with that, because it seems to me to give them exactly what they want. That the whole reason they put him through all this is to stop him from having a voice, and I believe in freedom of speech, and he should have a right to make his voice heard as well. So, um, but I hope that he'll have a voice, and I hope that he can have a voice that speaks to unity and the need to continue to stand peacefully and to stand unified. Um, yeah, I hope that they haven't. Um, I think there's I don't know him well, but what I understand is there's a good man there who cares deeply for his country and for the ones that he loves, and I hope that he can get a chance to share that and be a voice for freedom and a voice for peace when he gets out, because yeah, he deserves to have a voice and share about these experiences that he's been through.
Yeah, I think Pat's been like with kind of the whole freedom movement for like a long time, like even before Ottawa. Like I said, I just found out about Pat when all the Ottawa stuff started, but I was kind of scrolling back in his page, and he's got videos from like a year or so ago that was kind of trying to start up this whole movement. So he's kind of been at it for a while. Do you know, is Pat a trucker? I I'm not sure. Is he? Do you know?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I guess that was just always my assumption, but like I said, I don't know him that well. It kind of got brought into my life here when I just heard how he was being treated, and I was just so
Mhm.
disgusted by that I had to start doing what I could to help. So I haven't followed his journey, and I don't know, but that was my understanding. I'm
Yeah.
sure people in the messages can, or in the chat can clarify. I just want to point out here, Max Power. Glad you enjoyed my book, Making Fun of Trudeau. Is there any organization helping those from the protests I can donate royalties to? Yeah. So shout out to Max. I need to. I will acknowledge. I'm gonna. Thanks for the reminder, Max. Because in a stream, I'll definitely show a clip from that book. So Max did a like a children's book in the style of like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
I believe. Hey, Max, if you're still in the chat, there, you could post the link to your Amazon, because and by all means, he let me read through a copy of it, and I can highly recommend it. It's very funny, very cute. And Max, if you're in the chat, there, definitely post a link to your book. It's done in and it's family appropriate too. You could read it with your kids. It's a fun little Dr. Seuss style book about how, what is it, how the Trudeau stole Canada or something along those lines, instead of the Grinch stealing Christmas. Anyway, very funny. I
It's kind of clever.
I approve. And in another stream, I'll get a clip of it for people to see.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there it is. There, Max. It's called how the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. That's what
Are
it's
you
called.
are you able to like pin it so it shows up on the screen, or do you not
Well,
have that?
I'll get Christina will find a link there, and
Awesome.
I will acknowledge it further, because I do think it's very funny.
Yeah. I
Um,
saw I saw somebody's comment that says poor Pat and Freedom George. So I guess there's another person I guess was with Pat. His name's Freedom George, who's also still being detained from my
yeah,
knowledge.
I again, I don't like to talk too much about what I don't have. So I don't have direct contact with George.
Yeah.
Um, that so then I can't. As far as I understand, he's still in prison. I was under the standing that he was moved to a different prison than Pat.
Yeah.
But I don't have direct contact with him, so I don't know what is the, and but as far as I can tell, George's only crime is being friends with Pat. So
Hmm.
if Pat's crime is being successful on social media, and George's crime is being successful friends with Pat, it's just all totally nonsensical. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. Have we touched on everything? Like, if there's something that's like, you want to talk about it, definitely go ahead. Like, do you think we've covered everything yet in terms of like if there's
It's
something that
up
you
to
want to talk
you,
about,
boss.
definitely go ahead.
Any
Because
do we want to do some well, you can wrap up whenever. You could do some I'm curious. Can I ask you about the for my viewers who didn't see the event this past weekend in Victoria? How did that all go? You got to interview. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
guys didn't see it, Tyson did an interview with Brian Peckford and
Yep.
with Roman
Roman
Baber.
Babber. Yep.
Baber Baber. How do I say it?
I believe it's Babber. I think he
Ba-
said in his interview with me Babber.
Okay.
Honestly can't really remember. But yeah, I got to interview Brian Peckford and Roman Babber last Saturday in Victoria, and it was pretty big event. I was streaming. Now here's one thing. So I did my original stream, and a doctor gets up, and I think his name is, oh, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank. Oh, can't remember his name, but he was talking about stuff that I'm sure YouTube would deem as medical misinformation. So I'm not sure. Okay,
Naturally.
here's a funny thing. So he was talking, right, and I'm right next to Vic BC Live, and we both look at each other like, should we mute it? Like, I don't want to get our channels both deleted, and we came up with this idea that after the stream we would add it to like private, and then that way we wouldn't get like a strike. But before I could even like end the stream or anything, he's talking about like, I'm not going to get into it on this. But then my stream starts like glitching out. Like, I've never had this before. I've never had my stream just shut down at the parliament. And it was during his speech, and my stream just froze and then ended just like that. And then, of course, I ran, put it on private. I'm going to get that up, but I might have to trim that part out. But I thought that was like really like fishy.
Hmm.
And then like it almost screwed me because it was like right at the end of his speech, and it was right before Peckford was coming on. So I almost missed Peckford's speech. But that stream is still up. So if anybody's wondering like where is my stream coverage from like the whole event and why I only have Peckford's speech on there, it's because, oh yeah. So sorry to get distracted. Yeah, his name was Dr. Roger Hodkinson. Thank you, Newfie, for putting that in there. But yeah, I'm gonna get that up. But I just thought that was really weird that my stream just kind of cut out of nowhere. Never had that
Yeah,
happen.
I've had it a couple times where it all went black. I've
That's what
had it.
happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it no, it's happened to me twice, and it was both during speeches, which is a little sus,
Hmm.
considering a due of 3, 4, 5 hour streams going around, and um, yeah, and so it's hard because then I've also filmed some very controversial stuff that was fine and didn't cause any issues. So again, I don't jump immediately on, but definitely there's indication I and hearing from other streamers that something funky goes on, whether they have algorithms that kind of hold it until they can manually review.
Hmm.
I don't know. And not all of these things are like sinister. I mean, at the end of the day, YouTube wants to make money. And I always say like, that why do you trust businesses and you don't trust governments? It's like, well, I mean, I don't 100% trust anyone, but I trust businesses more because I know what businesses are up to. They're trying to make money. Ultimately, YouTube wants to make as much money as they possibly can, and they
Hmm.
want to increase their share value, and they want to
Yeah.
make money. That's what businesses want to do. And so if the content, if they determine will not be a wide appeal to advertisers, because YouTube makes its money on advertising. So if the stuff is too controversial, then YouTube won't be able to sell ads, and then they won't make money, and then they're just wasting space by hosting a video they can't make money on.
Yeah.
And so there, and I'm not denying, of course, there's a huge like leftist bend in the tech world, but there is also this issue of like at the end of the day they're just trying to make money on you. So whereas governments, you're never quite sure what the government's up to and what their ulterior motives are, but for the most part you can trust that the companies are simply trying to make a buck off of you. So
Yeah.
um that's a bit of what's happening there. So I
Hmm.
yeah, it's hard to know. And what is, I mean, I've had a weird thing on Parliament Hill, and a lot of us have faced this of our phones not working on Parliament Hill. And I've talked to other streamers and different people involved in the freedom movement, and if you get too close to Parliament Hill, your phone just stops working.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, it's hard to know because anytime it's happened to me, it's when there's a big event. That's why I'm in Ottawa. And so it could be that there was just too many people in that area, which makes the signal cut out.
Mhm.
But it that's the anyway. As you can see, I don't like to jump. I like to, as yeah, I like to try to figure out the most reasonable explanation and not jump to
Mhm.
um, every crazy theory. But it does.
Yeah.
It's definitely, there are weird things like that with streams cutting out. I mean, at the Convoy several times when the base at Coventry was getting robbed of fuel. All of our streams cut out simultaneously. A number of us were trying to
Mhm.
stream it, and then for about 20 minutes, none of us could stream, and then all of a sudden it was back. And so there certainly are things like that that go on, but as to whether
Yeah.
that's always what's happening or sometimes it's just a fluke, hard to know.
Yeah, it could have definitely just been a fluke, but I don't know. I thought it was fishy that like the whole time I've been streaming, like for 3 months now, I've never. I mean, I've had that issue as I kind of wandered off of like the legislature area, but like the whole time throughout my whole kind of career of streaming the convoy, I've never had that issue by
Hmm.
the legislature.
Interesting.
So as soon as the doctor got up and he started talking, um, my stream totally cut out. So I don't know. It's up to the viewers to deem whether what he was saying is actually medical misinformation, but I believe that YouTube would interpret it as that.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
um Here, Clearview Investigations wants to know, Tyson, man, you going to Ottawa to cover the James Top event?
I don't know. I'll have to talk to my parents about that. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I was gonna say you probably can't just buy your own flight yet,
No,
eh?
no.
But,
But if I can make it down there, which I don't think I will be able to, unfortunately, but if I can, then I will.
I'm sure you'll
But
be covering what you can from there,
yeah.
regardless.
And I'll
Someone,
definitely restream people too if I can't make it
yeah,
there. Yeah.
um, yeah. Actually, I see some people in the comments there saying, yeah, the Kimberly says the phones lose signal because Parliament needs to block communication so their lines stay open. It makes sense, so I'm told. Yeah, and that's why I don't jump to any explanation. I'm simply, it's a phenomenon we saw a few times, but it didn't seem to affect everyone. It seemed to just be certain people. Like for example, I have two phones, one that I use for streaming, and then my personal phone. And my personal phone did not work, but my streaming phone did, which is odd. So anyway, who knows what's going on there? I'd have to do some more investigating to figure out if there's any rhyme or reason to it all. Someone was saying there to ask you about that there were some counter protesters there in Victoria. Is that the case?
Yeah, so actually I should have said this earlier. So it was actually as soon as I started up my stream, everything was like going fine, and then out of nowhere I hear like people chanting Black Lives Matter. And I look over and I see like a group of people just marching down to the parliament and screaming Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, which I don't disagree with that. But I mean, it was a counter protest, and what happened, and I'm gonna touch on this. So I don't care, like, if you agree with the convoy or not. I show both sides, like I always say. But what one of the counter protesters did is they ripped apart a Canadian flag and threw it on the ground and yelled "F Canada." And I'm gonna clip that out when I get that um clip. But I just thought that was disrespectful as somebody who, of course, loves my country, ripping up
Huh.
a flag and throwing it on the ground. And then I didn't see this, but apparently they also burnt the flag after. Like, of course, like counter protest all you want. I mean, right? But
Hmm.
that's definitely crossing the
Well, I
line.
wonder what
But
they. I'm just trying to see the connection there between acknowledging that individual lives matter, and then ripping a Canadian flag.
yeah,
um, yeah, and I don't know. And then sometimes you wonder, are you just trying to get attention because the cameras will try to grab that stuff? But
yeah.
the seize the day. Sir, yeah, Dave. What are the July 1st hill plans and top plans? I'll cover some of those event related stuff after this interview. But thank you, there, seize the day, Will. So after we finish up with Tyson, then I'll finish off with some of my own updates there too. But But yeah, so I that's the first I heard about that in the comments, that you had a counter protest there that you dealt
Yeah.
with. So
Yeah. And as soon as I like kind of get that video up, because I plan on unprivating the video after like cut out some stuff, because again I don't want to get my channel deleted, of course. But I'm gonna clip out that individual part, because I'm not sure, I can't remember if I got a video of them ripping the flag, but I did zoom in on the flag on the ground, which was like
hmm.
ripped in half, and I did get them on audio yelling F Canada. So I'm probably gonna clip that out for people who want to see it. Guys, let me know in the comments, should I, do you guys want me to clip that out and just post it as its own like individual kind of clip?
Well,
And I could do that for sure. But
sound like a friendly bunch of characters. I take it they didn't have bouncy castles or free burgers.
and of course,
So
like it's not like I disagree with what they're chanting. Like they're saying trans lives matter, Black lives matter. Like, well, yeah, of course.
yeah, well,
But
that's what I'm
to
saying.
rip a
Where
Canadian
does the
flag,
ripping the
right?
flag come into
Yeah,
to play?
yeah,
Anyway,
hmm,
it
exactly.
it's an interesting. Well, there's this. I think there's yeah, like I'll go ahead and say, like small minded people who want to categorize everything into good and evil, black and white, and this is what they've done to this freedom movement is, they freedom movement bad, it's white supremacist, it's racist, they believe all this nonsense that the media said, and so they put that in the same category as plastic straws and water bottles, and I don't know, only teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic in the education system, and staying away from um, all this postmodern nonsense, and they put it all in the category of bad, and then the BLM and LGBT and all that is in the category of good. And so it doesn't actually matter what the individual event is, Convoy bad, this stuff good. So whether the BLM event is burning a flag and potentially doing some very dangerous stuff, um, we can't get too upset about that because that's in the category of good. The Freedom Convoy, oh well, they're doing a free barbecue and they have a movie night for kids. Like, no, 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 but it's Freedom Convoy. That is bad. That's definitely bad. We don't like anything they do. And it's this very like polarizing view of the world, instead of saying that like people can believe different things and individuals can be held responsible for their actions. That all this groupthink is just so unhelpful. Well, I know from being a part of these freedom events is there are people who do stupid stuff at the freedom events, and they, like in Ottawa, protesters called police on other protesters to stop them from doing illegal things, and so it's not as simple as this worldview is good and this worldview is bad, and it's unfortunately, our prime minister is one of these simple-minded people who has attempted to categorize Canada into these simple black and white categories,
Hmm.
and that's what leads us to this place now, because he went out and said that the freedom movement, freedom convoy, is bad, 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 and we don't like those people. And he keeps sticking to his guns on that and refusing to acknowledge that incorporates a massive group of people, just like the unjabbed are bad, 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 and he's not someone. We all make mistakes, and but he's not someone who's ever going to acknowledge that that was clearly a mistake, and or maybe he doesn't even. The first step is accepting that you have a problem, and I don't know if he's actually reached that first step of accepting that there is actually a problem with the things that he said. Well, he's
Yeah.
a character.
So one thing I wanted to ask you is kind of back it up a little bit, and I'm not sure if you were there for this, but I heard on the news, of course I don't know, that's why I'm asking you, that apparently the Terry Fox statue was in some way like, they used the word desecrated. From what I saw, like the video I saw a Canadian flag wrapped around him. Were you there for that? And like kind of maybe clear the air on kind of what you saw
Yeah,
for that.
that is exact. So you should know that whatever you saw in the news is the worst state that the Terry Foxmore was in, like the absolute worst state, because you can imagine if it was ever any worse, that's the image that the mainstream media would have sent all over the internet, right? So you are correct. They draped a flag. I know this is shocking, so brace yourself. They draped a flag over Terry Fox's shoulder. They even put a flag in his hand that was upside down. I know it's crazy. It's disgusting. It's monstrous. And I know. I think at one point there might have been a T-shirt that was maybe like hung over him. I know it's shocking. It truly is. But and like yeah, I don't think it needed to happen. It but like I also like I would not, especially with the flag. I would never have crossed my mind that hanging a flag over a statue would ever be considered desecration. And but oh man, yeah, they jumped all over that. Now, interestingly enough, later on, an image of Jack Layton emerged of Jack Layton posing beside this statue of Terry Fox that's out west, holding a rainbow flag, which is like whatever, but the rainbow flag. Point being that he did the same thing. He took a flag of something he cared about and he put it in Terry Fox's hand and then took a photo with it. But that was okay because it was something that the media agreed with. But because they put an upside down flag in Terry Fox's hand, then it's called desecration. So no, that's
Mm.
literally the worst thing that happened with that monument. And then after they made a big deal about it, people immediately took down the flags and laid a bunch of flowers next to Terry Fox.
Yeah, like,
So
I could see maybe well, like, even still, it's, like, a stretch to say putting a shirt on him would be desecration, but I could see maybe that would be kinda looked at differently, but putting a flag of, like, somebody's own country, like, Terry Fox is a Canadian,
mm,
and putting a Canadian flag over him, to call that like, you could say what you want, but to call that desecration, in my mind, is a little bit of a stretch. But yeah,
yeah, oh,
yeah.
definitely,
Mhm.
a huge stretch. But that was they were so desperate to find something to uh, to get us for, and that was the best they came up with, which like says something about again the kind of people that were down there. If the best you could come up with was an upside down flag, um, a patch of urine within a few feet of the war memorial. What was there? Oh yeah, the lady who jumped on top of the war memorial at one point. Uh, like if that really, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people in the city for a month, and that's the worst you could get. Not to mention, we lowered crime while we were there. That's a real stat. That that crime dropped in downtown Ottawa while the convoy was present. Um, so it was safer than it had ever been while we were there. So if that's the best they could find at us, then we did pretty darn good because the chances of like doing nothing, say there's a scale of like one is you tell a fib and like 10 is mass murder.
Yeah.
If the worst that we got was to a 1.5, then we did pretty good. We did pretty good at the convoy because it really didn't get too bad.
Yeah, and again, that comes back to why I think it's important to have streamers, because like, the media and, like, whoever could say whatever they want, but as long as the streamers, like, actually live, like, you're showing you what's happening in front of your face, right? So,
Hmm.
as long as there's streamers that's, like, sharing that and kinda showing what's actually happening, that's important. And again, back to why people trust streamers is because it's live and there's no, like, editing to make either side kinda look bad. It's
Exactly.
just happening in front of your face. And that's why I stream and do what I do, of course, is, also because there's like, a hunger for live streaming. Like, you even said earlier that, like, people are desperate for information. And, as a live streamer, you're able to provide that, live. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
there's
why
there's no
that's important, yeah.
manipulation. I You can't you can't manipulate the events in front of you. You can't I like my live stream of the march in Toronto. I couldn't help that all of a sudden if a thong man comes jumping in front of my camera, and well, that's what happened. So I can't change it now. So that's a part of that stream forever now.
Yeah,
But like you can't hide what's really going on. So you see some of the best and some of the worst, and you can judge for yourself. Yeah, what
exactly.
which is which. And same with conversation is I can't. I can't jigsaw your what you said tonight into a box that fits
Yeah.
my picture that I'm trying to tell because
Mhm.
it's weird. It's so scary talking to these mainstream media because they would They might take a half hour interview and they'll grab like 10 seconds or not even. And then you have to think about every 10-second little soundbite that you say. It's over.
Exactly.
You can't
Yeah.
just chat. You can't just be yourself.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Let's see. Kimberly says, "We don't trust all streamers, lol."
Well, as to
um,
whether there's a difference between trusting, you can at least trust that they're like whether they're telling the truth is a different thing. What I mean is you can trust that like what's happening is happening. Right
mhm,
now, me and Tyson are having this conversation and these are the words I'm saying and those are the words he's saying and we're
yeah.
not mixing and matching them. What I mean is you can trust that. And whether
Yeah,
you trust what I'm saying or he says, that's based on character and what you've seen from us in the past, but you can trust that what you're seeing is what's actually happening. Same with
yeah.
if we're out filming an event, you can trust that this is what's
Mhm.
happening in front of me in downtown Toronto right now. It's the closest thing you can get to seeing it with your own eyes, I think,
Yeah.
is what it does.
And that's another thing that I kinda pride myself on is, like, I never, of course, share my own opinions. I let people judge what they wanna think and let people form their own opinions. I show what's going on, and I let people think for themselves and form their own opinions, and kinda let people judge for themselves whether it's something they wanna support or not. Um, I feel like that's also very important in media. Um Yeah, let's see. Miss T says, without live streaming and you, Tyson, I don't think people would ever really know that we have rallies here on the island.
No, that's
I
exactly
agree.
true. I would have had no idea.
Yeah.
Um, I get, yeah, honestly, I would have imagined that because I haven't been on the island a lot, but it's apart from Victoria, it's like a lot of little small towns, and it's pretty rural. And I wouldn't have thought that there'd be kind of an it's impressive how many people for especially per capita as a measure of the size of the island, how many people have come out to some of those events is quite
Yeah.
quite amazing,
Yeah, well,
really.
it is a pretty large island, but I get what
Right.
you mean. Like, it's kinda, like, isolated, like, it's on an island, not on a
Right, but it's not
mainland,
like
but
there's a Victoria is the only larger
yeah.
city, and then it's a
Yeah.
smattering of towns and villages and
Yeah.
cottages and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, so it's and what's I don't know what is the population of Victoria ish.
Um, I'm not sure the population of Victoria, but I think there's somewhere around 300,000 on the island.
Yeah,
Somewhere around that, roughly. But yeah.
which is just like a like a mid-sized
Mhm.
Canadian city, but spread all over
Yeah.
quite a large area. So
We got
beautiful part of the world, by the way. I have a brother. I think I told you on the Sunshine Coast,
yeah.
and I love getting out there on the ferries and stuff when I can. And I
Awesome.
would totally have been there. Well, I definitely would go there this summer if these travel mandates ever be done. But I
Yeah.
drove once across the country over COVID, and I'd rather not have to drive it again if I can fly. But not yet.
This is funny here. We got Paul saying trust in Tyson. Shout out to Paul Thompson. He's
There you go.
always on here commenting. Um but yeah, we've been going for 2 hours now. So that's pretty awesome. I'm
Yeah,
glad you paint a really good picture. Like when you're talking, I was imagining in my head like what was going on from your point of view. So you did an awesome job painting the picture of what was going on. You gave me a much clearer perspective of what really happened. And hopefully there's some other people watching right now who take that away from this and kind of know from your perspective and your point of view what was going on in Ottawa when the convoy was there. But yeah, unless there's something that you want to talk about, which is totally fine. Like if there's something you want to say, go for it. For sure. Is
no,
there anything?
you just need to you just need to silence me whenever you want because I can keep going forever. But no, I think we covered a good chunk of it,
Yeah.
and you're such an impressive man, Tyson. Good work. I'm glad I could be the first guest on this, and I hope you do some more of these. And I didn't even feel like, and what I find impressive about you is I don't feel I need to speak down to you at all. Like just even as far as your kind of vocabulary and world knowledge is
Yeah.
concerned. Well done. You obviously you enjoy keeping up with what's going on and educating yourself. So
Mhm.
Keep it keep it up. You've been streaming longer than me by quite some time, so I will. I look forward to one day being, remember me when you're rich and famous, Tyson, and and let people know I was your first guest on your super popular podcast. So,
Well, thank you so much for coming on and being my first. You were actually also the first person I reached out to because I don't know, I feel really comfortable like kind of just talking back and forth with you. Like you're someone that is really good at like, painting a picture, like I said, and somebody that I feel comfortable kind of going back and forth and having conversations. So when I first thought about having people on my show, you were actually the first person who came to mind. So thank you
well,
for coming on. It's been a blast for me.
yeah, no, happy to. If you see people that I've had on or you're interested in, then definitely let me know. I can
Mhm.
be your talent agent and help pitch you to some people too. So
Awesome.
keep up the great work, brother. I'm gonna stay live so my viewers can stay on here, and I'll chat to them for a bit. But thanks so much for having me on, Tyson.
Yeah, I just want
And
to point out something kind of funny. This is either my mom or my dad who commented this, but they're still logged into my account. So, guys,
nice.
that's not me telling myself great job.
So,
That's probably my mom.
sure it
That's
is,
probably my mom or
Tyson. You're just
dad.
trying to get your comments up there a bit. Help
Yeah.
the algorithm.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I'm gonna log off. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, watching, commenting. I believe I left a link to Dave's channel down in the description. One thing I also want to promote um, is I have a Facebook page and I'm trying to grow that. I love the functionality of Facebook. Like you can go live on your phone with like the click of two buttons. So I'm Tyson Hockley on Facebook. I know I have a lot of people watching on Facebook. So if there's anybody who's watching on Facebook and doesn't have YouTube, maybe like people who are watching the Shed stream, just Tyson Hockley on Facebook. I'm really kind of trying to expand that platform, and I enjoy going live on Facebook. It's a ton of fun. But
Awesome.
that's kind of my self promo for the day. You could find Dave's link to his channel in the description if there is any odd case that you aren't already subscribed to him. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on. Anybody who follows me knows that I have trouble clicking the end stream button, especially with Dave on here. I hate ending streams.
Well,
Um,
I could peace out if it helps. So.
but I'm
Well,
gonna have to click that dreaded
okay.
button. But
Thanks,
yeah,
Tyson. We'll talk soon. Really appreciate it. That was fun.
take care. Thank you for coming on.